Thank you for tuning in. Hello and welcome to New Generation Woman, and I'm Jeanine. My absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, highly talented young intern Sophia, a philosophy student in Vienna, and we came up with the idea to produce a reflection series on my previous talks. So when Sophia sent me her feedback on David Hoffmeister, the interview with David Hoffmeister said, wow, I need to share this with my generation. If you haven't listened to the interview with David Hoffmeister, please do so. He's a spiritual teacher and an author of A Course in Miracles, and he's just such a gentle, soulful soul with pure and deep insight, not just on the Course, but on conscious journeys in general. We talked about Jeanne d'Arc and Pretty Woman Are Dead, what now? Meaning we talked about a new way of female leadership and modern relationships. So Sophia, what were your questions when you were listening to them?
You both are very critical of the law of attraction, like especially the book The Secret by, I don't know the author's name though, but I know many people.
Everybody knows it, yes.
Yeah, everybody knows it. I know so many people who read that book, like friends of mine, when they were entering into the spiritual kind of book world or like learning about spiritual stuff, and their moms loved it as well. So do you think the law of attraction in general is just a not working concept, or do you think it's just perceived the wrong way? What is your problem with it, and why have you like said that you didn't really like it?
That is a beautiful question, and we talked about it earlier, and we talked about the entry. I think the law of attraction is a beautiful entry. So if you start a spiritual journey, or if you start become more aware of your life, you see through the law of attraction, wait a minute, I do have influence on my health. Wait a minute, I do have influence on the job I want to take and the way I want to earn money. Wait a minute, I don't have to stay in this relationship. I can do something to uplift my life and make it better. For this, the law of attraction is a wonderful entry to make people aware of what is possible. And David said this too. Now, when we go back to school or to our whole conditioning and our education, our culture, we mostly haven't learned to distinguish what is the ego and what is the heart. Like we have read books, just listen to your heart, but we have never learned to listen to our heart. So mostly we do listen to what does our ego wants. We want to have a money raise, we want to have a better body, we want to have more clothes, we want to have a different partner, but that is all the ego wishes. And if you think about the ego, and the Course says it, the ego is self-hate masked as love. So it's a really nasty trick that the ego tells you, if you have a better car, if you just live in Vienna and then in London, if you have your degrees, if you have a job, if you have more money, if you have a new boyfriend, then your life will be happy. So you're always chasing the carrot because you arrive and you never fulfill. Unless you start to listen to the smaller voice, the quieter voice within your mind. There are two voices. The louder voice, the judging voice, the voice that is more pushy, that is coming from the ego, and the voice that is more gentle, calm in the background. I would say it's a loving kindness and awareness. That's the voice of, call it Buddha, call it God, call it the love's intelligence, call it your intuition, nature. That's the voice that sees so much more of your happiness and of your overall well-being than the ego, because the ego is just a very little window into your reality. And it always comes with a price. The ego never comes priceless. Does it make sense when I say this?
Yeah. So in conclusion, one could say that you criticized like the whole law of attraction thing, because when people read and use it, they often try to manifest superficial, materialistic things into their lives rather than thinking about what is behind all that ego, and which won't lead to happiness, basically.
Yes, it's not the criticism. It's just it's so easy for people to jump on it. It's so easy to sell yourself with a course and say, look, Sophia, I'm making you happy in one weekend, and this is a course, just buy it. And there's a process involved. And then the ones who don't get what they want, or they stay in a kind of unfulfillment, they start to judge themselves because they think, what am I doing wrong? Why didn't I get it? Or I'm getting it, I'm still not happy. And it's just a short-term gratification. And if you want to look for a long-term change in your life and a transformation, it always goes with a process. And as I said, there's nothing wrong about desiring more money, a better house, or a great partner. It is just that this is a small window to your happiness, and it makes, and you know, that's what humans do. They start to be greedy, they start to want to more, they start to be pushing. So inside yourself, there's always this driving force and pushing force of more. And you look at mothers, or you look at your parents who have been divorced. It's a very good example. And they think, with my next husband, everything gets better. And that's not the case. So look, if you look at your parents' generation, we are divorcing so much, and we always think, with the next partner, with the next country, the next house, my life is going to be better. I have the house, I have the partner, I have the money. I might have a few more kids, but my life is still not happier. I still do not love my life like it is. Maybe I have even more problems than I thought I had before. And that shows that it was a wish of the ego. And that's, with relationships, you can tell it really basically and very openly.
Yeah,
does it make sense?
Definitely. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Like there's a problem within you when it doesn't work with your partner most of the time, because it will repeat and repeat. The problem will be repeated in the next few relationships, basically, until you solve it yourself, I think.
Gosh, if I would have known that in your age, 21 years old, I'm jealous. And talking about the next point I'm jealous of, about relationships, we talked about men and women. And you said, Jeanine, why you're surprised that are so little women, are so few men who are not as conscious as you are. I shared with you that when I was single, it was not hard to find a man, but to find a conscious man. And I couldn't think of having a partnership that would be with a non-conscious man, and not having this kind of, you know, growing with each other. And you said what you have, as I define as kitchen table wisdom. You sit with your boyfriends and with your friends, men and women, and you have a lot of discussion. And you said sometimes they're even more spiritual than you are.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to what happened to you, it seems to me like a super obvious evolution, because women had to find a new identity that came with like their changed role in society, and that's what led them to like rethink their life and redefine themselves. So they had to constantly think and reflect on what they did and what they wanted to become, and
Yes.
men didn't do that for a long time. And I actually think, or don't you think, that this will change rapidly within my generation, because I know so many men that are super spiritual, practicing yoga, reading a lot, like more spiritual than I am, basically, or like more interested in those topics. And I think that's a really cool
Development.
development. Yeah.
Yes. Do you have a feeling? I mean, yes, indeed, every generation has to do and evolve something. And I think in my generation, women really had to stand their ground and find themselves. And for me, it was a long journey to find myself back as a woman, and now to step up as a female leader and say, okay, I do have the wisdom, I do have practiced certain kind of grace and strength to come from that, and to empower and motivate, inspire women to be the female leaders and be strong in their relationships and leadership as women, but be gentle with it. And I know many women, I don't know if you know them, have observed there are many women who are strong, who have made a career, but they're pretty pushy, pretty hard. And like Hillary Clinton, she's a wonderful example of, this is a kind of woman I never wanted to be. Do you see this sometimes in your generation, or did you observe in my generation, oh, these are career women, but I don't want to be that kind of woman?
Actually, I think I'm too young to be a career woman.
From
So most of my
observing.
friends, I don't really think that they are too pushy or something. We're just like all trying to become like independent
Yes.
women,
Yes.
and like don't care so much about how we look, or like that we are looking good and being like a perfect Barbie doll, or like we cook super super nice to be like the perfect housewife. But on the other hand, we're also like really soft, so we don't aggressive, or we really care about how other people are feeling in the soul, like how our friends are feeling, and we don't want to be too pushy. Like this is what I could say in general about the people I know. So I don't know everyone
No,
in this
that's why we
generation,
have two
but like
generations
from
meeting
my
with each other,
yeah.
because it's interesting for me to know how you are feeling as a woman. I mean, I wasn't conscious about that when I entered into the radio world. I was 1 year or 2 years older than you, but we were trained to become Arnold Schwarzenegger. So our trainer would always say, I want you to be Arnold Schwarzenegger when you go on the mic. So my whole picture of me was fighting, pushing it, being strong, and going like this into my meetings, because there were a lot of bunch of men who would just not take us very serious. So we would really have to stand our grounds.
Oh yeah, that's what we have to do actually as well. I don't think everyone does it though, but sometimes I think that boys aren't taking me as a girl very seriously sometimes, because if you're like softer and not like super loud all the time, then they will sometimes laugh at your opinions and stuff. So you also have to gain respect somehow. That's what I experienced myself. So I completely understand this thing that sometimes you have to fight and be hard and tough when you're in a room full of boys and you have to stand up for yourself, for your opinions. Then sometimes you have to seem strong and hard and tough, because otherwise like people won't take you very seriously, especially if you're like a petite girl and you're like smiling and happy, and then they won't take you seriously. I think that's a huge problem, but it's not a problem of the girls themselves, but of the whole society, like making them think that they won't be taken seriously if they don't seem hard or cool or super loud or super confident.
Yeah, that's good that you say that. And we also talked about, I mean, for completing this espresso version of our
Yeah.
talk, because you have to go to a party.
Yeah.
And so we talked about, I mean, it took me a long time to own my strength without having to perform anything, a long time. And I'm still practicing it. But as a piece of wisdom, there is a saying in the Course in Miracles, in my defenselessness, my safety lies. So in my honesty, if I'm really honest, and if I'm showing up for who I am, and if I'm not pushing, if I'm not performing, if I'm owning it from my heart, not from my mind, there is a self-evident resonance with my audience. So particularly with the men in my generation, when I when I trained top managers and I would be pushy, I would get into an aggressive mode that we all knew from, bless her heart, Hillary Clinton. We are just pushing men and women alike away. So that is a lot of practice I do with women, but also with myself. The minute I start to be judgmental and aggressive against my male peers, I absolutely push them away. Now, if a male colleague is doing this next to me, he's not pushing anybody away, because, if male or if female male leaders are pushy, we are more used to this. But if a female leader is pushy and aggressive, it just doesn't come across. So I really need to practice a gentler, wiser, yet a very strong way of showing up, of standing in my own shoes. But the quality doesn't come from my mind and proving my intellectual capacity. The quality comes more from the gentleness of my heart and owning it and knowing it. And that is a practice that I did for myself and do with others. And this is what I can give to your generation as a piece of advice. Don't pretend to show up with your utmost beauty or your intellectual capacity. Just own more the quality of your heart, own more your being, and show up with this without having to perform or think you are not seen. Like, as a completion, when you wrote your book, you have such an amazing way of expressing yourself. It's like a piece of art. And I said to you, write it again and write it simpler. And you said, oh, I really don't want that. Nobody's going to see me. And I said, no. You are seen already. You don't have to put another top of ice cream on it in order to show your beauty inside and outside. just take that away and own your inner beauty and own your wisdom and own your knowledge and show up from there. So it's always coming from inside out. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So shall we say goodbye for today?
Yeah.
I'm really happy that I have you saying this on
I'm
air.
really happy that I have you too. I'm sorry that we had.
And no, that's okay. We now manage everything with your iPhone. So that was perfect. So the next interview is going to be Jean Twenge. We're also going to have an espresso version, a reflection on that one. So after this, we have upcoming guests like Nuncio Lombardo, Nick Davis. We maybe have Stig Severson. He is the world record holder of breath holding, 20 minutes. So there are some really wonderful conscious men who are coming up. And I want to finish this talk with my favorite sentence. Today I choose compassion over judgment for myself and others. Wherever you are, thank you. Have a soulful rest of the day. Until soon. Bye-bye.